Welcome to the Just Solutions podcast. I'm your host, Aiko Schaefer, Executive Director at Just Solutions. This space has always been dedicated to exploring community-led projects, policy advocacy, and the lived experiences of those most impacted by climate change. Over the last 2 seasons, we've had the honor of talking with leaders from across the country, including scientists, organizers, advocates, and policy experts. They helped us better understand both the challenges we face and the ingenuity already at work in our communities. Toward the end of last year, we recorded several interviews that were set to be released, interviews filled with powerful insights. But then the political and social landscape shifted dramatically. So today, instead of letting those conversations remain unheard, we're bringing you a look back that leads us into the future. At Just Solutions, we've identified 3 strategic focus areas to guide our work moving forward: energy affordability, resilience, and health and safety. These topics emerged from listening to the needs of communities, identifying the gaps in our systems, and analyzing the solutions that are already paving the way. We started by taking a look at the role of energy affordability in achieving our climate goals. Affordability isn't just about lower bills, it's about ensuring that everyone can share in the benefits of clean energy, healthy food, and safe housing. Too often, the systems that keep us alive are set up so the costs fall hardest on those with the lowest and fewest resources. Peter Lehner, managing attorney at Earth Justice, helped connect the dots between affordability and structural inequality, specifically when it comes to energy and agriculture.
We can learn a little bit from our work in the energy area. Really, there's 3 parts to how we are trying to decarbonize our electricity system. One is we've tried to clean up fossil generation. The plants that are out there now, let's try to get them as clean as possible. The second is let's try to generate electricity from inherently clean systems like solar and wind. And the third is recognizing that we can't just build quite as much all of this renewable energy. Let's use energy as efficiently as possible. And those 3 legs of cleaning our energy system have been really important. With the food system so far, we've only talked about essentially the equivalent of cleaning up fossil fuel generation, slightly cleaning up what we're producing now. But that would be thinking about how do we produce food in an inherently cleaner way like solar and wind energy. And then there's the equivalent of energy efficiency, which is food efficiency.
Peter's point is clear. We're subsidizing pollution, not people. And until we change that, affordability will always be out of reach for those who need it most. We also heard from Lou Daly, Senior Fellow here at Just Solutions, who shared how energy systems can be designed to be both more affordable and more resilient for communities. He discussed the role of the Grid Resilience and Innovation Partnership, or GRIP program.
I think the GRIP program has potential to be a jumpstart to get on the right path of how we meet these challenges, which is, I would describe it as a pivoting to a more distributed electricity system, rooftop solar, community solar, public solar, a lot of battery storage, and interconnected microgrids that can achieve energy resiliency for entire communities. And, the changes with this path, and there are projects in GRIP that I'll get to that are good examples. One will have lower costs for energy because renewable energy integrated at the local level is going to be cheaper than fossil energy in the utility model. So we'll have more affordability. We'll have more resilience from climate shocks for local communities. By definition, locally self-sufficient energy that can be islanded from the main grid when it goes down is going to be more resilient than the utility model like PGE of undergrounding all its wires. And then you have potentially significant community, economic, and health benefits from that localized energy system. And this could become a core principle of how those systems are designed in terms of the governance. And we have nothing like that as a principle at all in the case of the big utility-centered system.
Lou's describing more than a technology shift. It's a power shift. Local, community-controlled energy doesn't just cut costs, it builds independence and resilience. But if clean energy is only for the wealthy, it's not a transition, it's a takeover. When people hear affordability, they often think about dollars, But health and safety are part of the price too. Medical bills, lost income, and shortened lives are all costs that frontline communities are forced to absorb. Megan Biven, founder of True Transition, explained how our current systems fail to protect oil and gas workers and shifts the burden onto them instead.
Oil and gas regulation in the United States is carried out by at least 40 different agencies, and they all have different rules. So it could be a federal agency like Bellum and Bessie. It could be U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service on federal lands, could be tribal nations, and then the states themselves are often have primacy for regulating oil and gas. And yes, OSHA, Department of Labor rules govern a lot of that work, but it is my experience that that is very rarely enforced and overseen. And so workers are really at the discretion of their company's safety programs. We carried out a survey of oil and gas workers across the United States 2 years ago. We had 1,600 respondents across the supply chain, which included upstream, so those that drill and produce the oil and gas at the well site, the midstream, so that's pipeline truckers, and then finally downstream, that is the refinery petrochemical. And one thing that we saw is that there is a percentage of workers that would be considered 1099 self-employed contractors. So they're at will, the liability is shifted onto them. And that was a question we asked, was whether their safety programs were designed to keep them safe, designed to shift liability onto the individual worker, or a mix of both. And I want to say 45% of the workers said it was a mix of both, and they felt that their program was implicitly designed to shift liability onto them. And we have case studies that really show that, like a spill event in the Gulf, for instance, where the worker themselves would go to jail, but not anyone in corporate leadership.
When health and safety are treated like optional extras, the consequences are deadly. Protecting workers is the foundation of a just and affordable future. Jasmine Gill from Think 100% with the Hip Hop Caucus remind us that even in hostile political climates, collaboration can protect people's health and safety in real, tangible ways.
Because during these sort of times when you don't have an administration that has in previous history been friendly towards believing climate change is even real, right? Yet alone believing that this industry is killing, polluting, and harming BIPOC communities, you have to change your strategy to where it's actually going to have the most impacts. Hence is why I spoke of the work that's being done at the state and local level. That's where you're going to see the most impact. That's where you're going to see the most movement. That's where you're going to see the most progress. We have states like Louisiana, for example, that's always been Republican led. What this nation will experience will be what Louisiana has experienced its entire history almost, right? We have people that have been organizing, stopping these petrochemical facilities, stopping the expansion of the harm that's being created in their communities by working together, by working locally, by organizing. And so we have to mimic that, but we also have to use these moments that are coming up to drive that narrative to further get people involved in that work and allow them to see the impact that it will have over some of the other federal, international type of work.
The fight for health and safety is the fight for affordability, because if you're paying with your health, you're already paying too much. Lastly, we're looking at resilience. Resilience includes having the resources, rights, and respect to recover and thrive in times of disaster and uncertainty. When we spoke with Justin Osteen, Executive Director of the Navajo Nation Washington office, the theme of resilience came through stronger than ever.
I think that's really what I'm most proud about my people. I mean, when you talk about the Navajo Nation, the Navajo Reservation today is about the size of West Virginia. It's bigger than a lot of U.S. states. We have over 27,000 square miles of land. We have over 400,000 enrolled members, and about half of those members still live on the Navajo Reservation today. I think we're great stewards of our lands. We focus on protection, environmental policy, and also making sure that our culture and identity remain.
Justin also spoke about the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act and the painful failure of the federal government to protect people from uranium mining and testing.
Between 1944 and 1986, over 30 million tons of uranium ore was extracted from the Navajo Nation. And to put that into context, between the same period, domestically within the United States, 60 million tons of uranium was extracted nationwide. So that means over half of the domestic supply of uranium came from the Navajo Nation. And it was the Navajo Nation, the people of the Navajo Nation, that were actually working in these mines. So between 1944 and about 1971, there were about 100 mines. And those mines were owned and operated by the federal government. But something changed in 1971. The ownership of the mines had transferred from the federal government to the private industry. I know that the federal government has somewhat accepted liability, and that's primarily why they passed the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act in 1990, subsequently amended in 2000. But it really, it didn't address everything. It didn't address the family members who were exposed. I'm talking the family members of the miners. You have your loved one working in the mines all day. They come home, they're covered in yellow cake or uranium dust, and they take that, they shake off the clothes in the house. Now everyone else is exposed. They go to, their local water supply to do laundry and wash the clothes. So they have a fresh set of clothes to work in and the next day. And now your water supply is contaminated. So those are the people who are left out of the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act.
For the Navajo Nation and for so many frontline communities, resilience is about surviving systems that were never built to protect you. Our three focus areas, affordability, resilience, and health and safety, are not separate fights. They're deeply connected, each one making the other possible. In Season 3, we'll dive deeper into each topic. We'll spotlight community solutions, examine what's working and what's failing, and hear from people on the front lines of change. The next season is about clarity, naming what's broken, and lifting up what's already being built. Thank you for joining us.